I see Barbara and Mary and Don Hooper, which looks like Marilyn and not Don. Okay, let's see. Welcome, welcome. Thank you again for joining, sharing our stories. If you can put in the chat where you're from and what your name is. Introduce yourselves to everybody. We have people from all across the nation checking in.
Where's the chat?
As a note to everybody, we are live streaming this to our YouTube account, and it will be ready for you to view at any time. There's about a 30-second delay between the actual program and the live streaming. It is on the NWSOFA.org website under the YouTube account, and you just click on that, and then you click on live for the live streaming, and it'll be the one that is currently operating. So if you have to take a phone call or go to the bathroom and you want to come back and catch everything, you can just drop into the YouTube account and watch it there, or you can pick it up later on. Thank you very much. Oh, and if you do not want your video to
Hey, Bill, you are muted. You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry, I did mute all.
I just unmuted. So if you do not, we are video recording this. So if you do not want your picture on the video, please turn your video off. But we would love to see everybody's video. Okay, thank you very much. And Stephanie, I am making you the co-host now, the host now.
I gotcha.
All right, welcome everybody. Go ahead as we're waiting for everyone to come in, is let us know where you are from. And if you could put, if this is your first session of sharing our stories, just so we know if you're a first timer. I am gonna go over a little bit of the background to catch everybody up, but just would be interesting to know. And you can even write one fun fact about yourself. We're just going to give a couple minutes for folks to come in. Welcome, welcome.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for checking in with us and joining our sharing our stories tonight. Chris will be your host. And we have our other Chris Hawkins here as a guest. And she is the videographer lady. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, as we're waiting for folks to come in, just I'll do some of the intros real quick. So we have Beth, Stephanie, Merle, and Laura helping with the call today. We're excited. We have kind of a big update to share in terms of the blending of two groups. We gave you a little bit of an introduction to that in our last session. And we've had a chance to work on it a little bit more. Chris and I have been back and forth on the phone, sometimes even minutes before this very call. So yeah, it's definitely a work in progress. And like many of our Northwest Suburbs Organizing for Action Indivisible groups, we are building the airplane as we are flying it. So but lots of exciting things are happening. Okay, I think, did Bill get everything he needs in terms of just the intro slide? And if he did, and we're ready to start, I would go ahead and say, Stephanie, you could just go ahead and pull up the slides and Actually, I see them there now. Okay, hold on. Let me organize my stuff. So on my end, I'm not able to see the full slide. So I don't know if there's a way of just making the size a little bit smaller. Yeah.
Well, I can either present or you can see them the way we're looking at them. It's your call.
Uh, okay.
Would you like me to go back to slideshow?
Yeah, let's try that. Are you guys for the other participants, like Chris Hawkins, are you able to see the whole slide?
Yeah,
Now-
some of my view is blocking some stuff, but not most of it. So it's fine for me.
Okay, so maybe I just need, hold on, let me just do something real quick and see if I can. I have it set to standard, but you know what? I have the only challenge it's going to be is, Stephanie, I don't know if this will work or not. Is it possible to just decrease the percentage to make the slide look smaller, like to where more of the content fits on the screen? Because I could go ahead. It's just that the folks on the call, if they're seeing what I'm seeing, they won't be able to see the whole content on the slide.
Let me think for a second.
Okay.
Hang on. Okay. Is that any better? No, I bet.
Yeah, and actually some people in the chat are saying they can see the whole slide, so maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of how you have your view set up.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move forward. If for whatever reason folks aren't able to see the whole slide deck, we'll make sure that we have the slides available for people. But okay, all right. I am gonna go ahead, so we can just go back to slide number 1, or yeah, actually that one is good, Stephanie. Just with the introduction. Okay, my name is Chris Weldy. I am a member of the Northwest Suburbs Organizing for Action Indivisible group. And the session you are in today is called Sharing Our Stories. This is our 6th session of a relatively new group. I've already given you some introductions of folks that are helping out with the call tonight. And what I now want to do is give you a little bit of background about how this group came to be. So for many of you that are familiar with the Northwest Suburb Organizing for Action group, you know that we have a regular recurring meeting every Monday, well, every day, really, Monday through Friday, right? Called Coffee and Conversation. And Coffee and Conversation is normally kind of a free-flowing meeting where people can bring up anything that's on their mind. So they might be updating us on things that are happening in their lives, in their communities, in the news, etc. But this particular day, we had a member, there was a lot of consternation from many people in the group because we were at the point in June where we were really starting to feel the impact of some of the regime's policies. And one of our group members ended up sharing a personal story about how she was so worried about what she was going to do as a result of, and at that point we didn't even know what the full impact would be. We had heard rumors that things like Medicaid potentially could be cut, but then other people, you know, Trump at that time was saying, oh, where I'm not going to be cutting Medicare or Medicaid. But there were still worries that could happen, right? And there were worries that programs like, housing HUD programs could be cut as well. And so this particular group member mentioned that she was reliant on Meals on Wheels. That's where she got most of her meals. And in addition to that, she relied on HUD housing and said, if they cut funding for HUD, I will actually be homeless. She also had a disability and relied on Medicaid for her health care. So, of course, a lot has happened since, and that call happened in May. A lot has happened from May until November, and sadly, some of our worst possible nightmares have come true, that even though we were told Medicaid wouldn't be cut, it was cut. And we know that Meals on Wheels in many communities, the federal funding has been cut. And we also are already aware that the HUD housing will be cut as well. So one of the things, so after she and then a couple others shared similar stories, I mentioned that, I wondered if there was a way, and I mentioned to Bill Davis, our leader, I knew that they had a communications team. I said, I wonder if there's a way that we could amplify these stories. These are really important, and people have to know this. They need to know how these policies are impacting everyday people in our real lives. This isn't like hypothetical. And, and so Bill, in his good-natured spirit that he always has, says, that's a great idea, Chris. And we have this tradition in Northwest Suburbs Organizing for Action Indivisible, that anybody that comes up with a good idea, we ask them if they would like to lead a group doing just that. So out of that, I volunteered to organize this group, Sharing Our Stories. And but I said going into this, I don't have necessarily the skill set to do video content creation or maybe even writing letters to the editors. So this will, and some of the other roles that we knew we were going to need to have for this this group to be successful. And so I said, I'd be happy to do that, Bill, but we're going to need, we'll have to solicit some team members to be part of the process. So here we are on our 6th meeting, and we have done a call for action a couple different times asking for people to volunteer, and we have been successful in getting some volunteers. So I'm excited about that. So just laying out the agenda for tonight. I've given you a little bit about the background of the group. But I'm also going to recap, because I know some people are new to this session. So I'll recap some of the things that we've done already. As I mentioned, this is our 6th session. And I'll give you a status on where we are with volunteers, because we do need more. And then I'm going to talk to you about a really exciting partnership between another Indivisible group out of California. And Chris Hawkins is on the call. She has a similar group called Real People, Real Stories. And we are going to blend the two groups together, and we may even come up with a new name. But for right now, we're going to have a consolidated name, and then we are actually going to open the floor. So Chris is going to get a little overview of her group, and then right after that, we will open the floor and collect stories as we've done on other calls, and just ask for volunteers to share their stories. We're using this call a little bit as a test of process, because Chris, when she does video content creation, has normally done that in person, like at a protest. So we're going to test this idea of doing it electronically, either via a Zoom meeting, or we're exploring a couple other ways that we might be able to do that. But we're going to use this as a test. And then Constance, who is the lead of our writer-editor team, is actually going to take some of the content also from tonight. That's why we're saving the transcript and the video, and try and work up some written versions of some of the stories that are shared. Okay. All right, so without further ado, I'm just going to go on to the very next slide, which is the power of storytelling. And so there's a lot of different reasons why people use storytelling to convey messages. We actually have had a number of our representatives, our folks in Congress, that have said, we really need you to gather and share and collect stories Yeah, I'm just, yeah, okay. All right. So one of the things that makes storytelling so powerful is that it's a way of gathering a personal narrative. It just has a unique way of humanizing what could be a very complex policy issue. It also helps to have it resonate on a very emotional level. I mean, we tend to remember stories that people tell us, especially when they're harmed. So unlike facts and statistics, stories tap into empathy. They help audiences understand the real life consequences of policy, and hopefully will motivate people to take meaningful action. So if you could, because I can't see the chat right now, but maybe some of our chat prompt helpers, if you could just, so what are some of the things that you think of as to why you think storytelling is so powerful? And if you could just put some of those things in the chat. So, and as I see them now, I'm able to, anybody? So any thoughts on why you think? So Elena says it establishes a personal connection, and absolutely. Chris talks about human expression just being truthful. When you see the faces, body language, tone. Josephine, remember stories. Someone else connects us to our humanity. People learn from each other. And absolutely, George, it definitely humanizes the message. I agree, Constance, more compelling way to understand an issue. And stories do help us to, identify, or we can identify with people's stories, and it makes it very human. So, okay, thank you everyone for your comments. We're going to go on to the next slide, and I am going to let you know, this is the recap for the folks who are just joining us, especially for the first time. So on the 3rd of June, we had our kickoff meeting, and we introduced just an overview of storytelling, why it's so powerful, why it's a good tool, and introduce a 4-pillar model. On the 23rd, we were intended to have an op-ed writing session that was postponed, and still we have plans to reschedule, but we did give people some webinars that had been recorded on how to write an op-ed. So especially if you're interested in our writing team, we will have further training on that. But what we did instead for that session is we actually gathered stories. And we had people, we just rotated, we asked for volunteers and had many of them that shared some very powerful and impactful stories. On the 29th of July, which was our 3rd session, we had a guest speaker out of New York. So Eric Vladimir was the communication director in the Invest in Our New York campaign, and she uses storytelling extensively, and she partners with a number of groups that have a very they have a very a good infrastructure for amplifying and sharing this and sharing those stories once that they're gathered. And then on the 2nd of September, we had a guest speaker out of Bay Area Coalition out of San Francisco, who talked about having house parties or gatherings and having people come to them and just share their story of me, because almost all of those stories of me were people that were, impacted in some way by what's going on right now in our country. So, and then I just wanted to say a thank you on behalf of Cecilia Monago, because the other thing that happened, so Cecilia, as I mentioned, is out of California. And then just because we then had a connection with her group, she asked us if we could volunteer to help with phone calls and phone banks for the Prop 50 redistricting initiative. That, good news, everybody, you may have seen Gavin Newsom mention that it did pass. And so that was the redistricting initiative out of California, which was to directly offset what happened with our gerrymandering in the state that I live in Texas, where we are anticipated to lose because of redistricting seats that used to be Democratic seats. So I'm passing on Cecilia's, not our Cecilia, but Cecilia Monago's thank you to everybody in our group that helped with those phone banks. It made a difference. And we saw that good news this morning or last night, depending on when you read about the great news. On the 30th of September, was our fifth session, and we had a guest speaker, Jody Ryan, out of Indivisible National, and she did a session on Truth Sandwich, fighting misinformation. And I have to say, our group is likely the very last group that will ever hear about the Truth Sandwich model, because Indivisible National is broadening their misinformation, disinformation messaging focus, and they actually are no longer going to have the Truth Brigade as a campaign. But we are going to keep it alive here in Northwest Suburbs Organizing for Action, and as are many other Indivisible groups, and all the information on regarding Truth Brigade and Truth Sandwiches and a lot of the resources will be saved on an Indivisible site for people who still have groups that are focusing on that. The reason for them ending that campaign had to do with just how pervasive misinformation and disinformation is now, and needing to kind of change their strategy a little bit. And then also just the size of Indivisible National or Indivisible groups and the support that they provide for various groups has grown so significantly, and they haven't had an increase in staffing. And so they just had to kind of think about ways that they could best use their staffing in light of this threat that we're facing with the Trump regime. So go ahead, Stephanie, and next slide. And so I just want to share, some of our successes that we've had. So after we gathered some of the stories in some of our first couple of sessions, we did compile some of those stories, and we had one of our team members, Marilyn Hooper, who I know is on the call tonight, actually take some of those stories and put them, decoupage them onto tiles. And I know that she brings them with her to various community events. When they go and visit congressional leaders' offices, they bring them. And it just is a very good visual for people to read stories of people impacted, and by whether it's cuts to healthcare or whatever program or service that maybe have been decremented. The other thing that she did that was kind of cool is that when they had their No Kings event, they actually took hundreds of those tiles and pieced them together, and you can see that in the picture, pieced them together to spell out the word No Kings, and then had a drone flying over that could capture that picture. So, okay. All right. So now I want to transition to this is kind of where you're going to see the two groups blending for the first time, and our shared mission. So Chris put these slides together for us. Actually, there you go. So our mission still is to elevate the stories of working class families, the vulnerable and marginalized communities, and small businesses affected by the Trump administration, and amplify those stories. Chris, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, because there were some things that you wanted to emphasize as well.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I'll do this quickly. This is kind of the beginning of what I might be talking with any of you, sharing stories or just in general talking about the program is about. I'm kind of connecting the two things here. So these are kind of goals that we have down here. We want to encourage storytellers to speak their truth. Sometimes that's a little bit difficult for people. Sometimes it's not. All of these things are part of the interviewing process, and it's not really rocket science, but they're things that we're trying to do. So it's really important to have personal expression and authentic emotion. So we try to facilitate that when we do a video. We try to engage those who relate to these stories to tell their own stories. The whole goal of this, as it moves down these 4 points, is we want to eventually welcome all into our movement, and that will more and more. I believe that will happen as we get more people to tell their stories, others relate to it, and then start thinking about where they really want to belong. I have one quick thing I want to tell you right now. My husband's an introvert. He doesn't go to rallies. He's totally on our side. I hate sides, but all of that. Well, when I got home from the No Kings rally, he told me, he says, "You're not going to believe this, but I saw a lot of the videos." And he said, "I really wanted to be there." And he said, "I want to be with those people because that's where I feel like I belong." And that is exactly what we need. And if he was that way, I can't imagine others may be feeling that way too. So that's my end goal, ultimate goal. So all of these things that we're doing here, in my mind, these 4 goals that we've worked on, I believe are going to help us get there.
All right, thank you. All right, so this next slide, it really, you've seen us talk about the different roles and responsibilities that you might want to volunteer for, but we're just going to lay them out again. And we've kind of added some new, Chris and I worked on this together in terms of adding some new roles and responsibilities that may not have been on our original sign-up sheet. And we will adjust accordingly. So I'll just kind of do a quick overview. So first and foremost, we need people that can literally just help us find the stories. So I know many of the people on the call today, you have personal stories that you can share, and that might even been the reason that you came to join us on the call tonight, because that's what we put out in our Mobilize invite. And then we are going to need people that are going to categorize and log the stories. And we already have someone that has volunteered to help with that, Constance. And then we have the content creators. And so you just heard Chris, or I think actually maybe Beth mentioned it, that Chris's background is in the video content creation. And that was kind of the format that she used for collecting her stories. And then we'll have the written content. And so Constance is leading our writer editor team. And there's lots of different things that that they can do as well, from interview the storytellers and get some of the stories packaged in a way like submitted as letters to editors. We already know that several of your congressional leaders in the Chicago area have solicited and asked for stories that they need to help support some of the things that they're fighting for. And then another big one is just creating posts for social media. I know some of you are already involved in some of the Truth Brigade social media storms and things like that. So this would be a similar thing, but only amplifying some of the stories that we collect. And actually I got ahead of myself a little bit. So we have the writer, the content creators, and then just the people at the, you can see the amplification part at the bottom where it talks about where you might amplify the story. So it could be on your personal pages. It could be to members of Congress. But we also need people that are kind of tech savvy to help us figure out this whole how to break these algorithms and what the magic numbers are to get things boosted. Because I know there are kind of magic formulas for that. And then just even potentially kind of seeing what some of the leading influencers are doing to also, and even connecting with influencers to amplify some of the stories that we gather. Okay. And then another thing, which is more administrative, is so we'll have people that will sign up that will say, hey, I have a story to tell, or maybe even on this call, share a story, and then we might want to follow up with them, is needing people to help with just the follow up and the scheduling. And so if you see yourself having the skills that are laid out on the slide, and you're good at interacting with folks, and you're good at following up, whether by text or email, make sure you let us know. And when we, at the end of the call, I'm actually going to have Merle post, it's Merle or Laura, one of the two are going to post the sign up form so you can volunteer. And then we didn't have this at all, and I don't know how we overlooked this, Stephanie, but we also need tech people, you know, and I guess we may have considered that maybe some of the team members would, you know, like if you were in charge of collecting stories like Constance is, that we would just be responsible for the tech part of it. But what we've soon discovered is not all of us are skilled at creating a database, but we might be skilled at just maintaining the database. So that's where we're going to need help with just, and it could be video editing, you know, some of the things that Chris does, but also, like I said, even just helping us with the setting up the catalog, if you will. And that's pretty much it, as we've kind of talked about the main key roles. And like I said, for those of you who have been with us through the whole journey, okay, you'll notice there's a couple new roles that are not in the sign up form. So like when we go to give you the sign up sheet, you may just have to type in some things free text, because we didn't have a category of someone that we said tech support, just as one example. Okay. And someone asked, Elena, how do you want the spreadsheet? Oh, how do we want the spreadsheet set up? Well, that's a good question. What we thought about initially, but we can go into more detail, but if you think you might have the skills to help us with that, but just as a big idea is we want something that's sortable, you know, to where if somebody is looking for stories related to healthcare, we can filter by healthcare and know that we have stories collected already on healthcare, and we have one in a video format, and we have one in a, you know, in a written op-ed, just as one example. We haven't gotten through all the detail on that. Part of what we're going to do at the end of this call, when we do that call for volunteers, or one of the way ahead tasks that we have, is that we would ask people to come back we'll have smaller group sessions of the volunteers. So the key thing for us right now tonight is we're trying to get all the team leads filled out, you know, and get, and then we can have those you know, the actual individual meetings and brainstorm. Like, for example, with the question that was just asked, we would ask Constance, who's going to be the collector of the stories, what are the kinds of things that you want, you know, what do you want on the spreadsheet, or what do you want in the database? And then ask the folks that have the technical skills to help create it. So, and I'm just going to remind everybody, you heard me say this before, we are building the airplane as we were flying it. So we may not know today all the things that eventually we'll need as the project becomes bigger and more successful, and we kind of build it out. So with that being said, I am now going to transition it over to Chris, who's going to, and we can just go back to the last slide. And then I'll transition back to Chris. She is going to go and give you a little bit of overview of what she did with her group, Real People, did I get it right? Real People, Real Stories. And also then after that, we are going to transition to actually collecting stories. And we have already put in the chat, maybe at least once, possibly twice, when we get to the section where we're going to be asking you to raise your hand and share stories, if you're willing to do that, we have just some suggestions and prompts that Chris has compiled, and they're in the chat. But without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. It's really an honor to be here, and I really appreciate you all showing up for this. Just to kind of back up and tell you how I got into this, I've been in communications and messaging with my Indivisible group since the inception of Trump. And we put together a database, for example, of all the project 2025 stuff that could be happening last year. I've studied with different communicators such as Rachel Bidikofer, who's an electoral analyst, about what is the best way to reach voters. What do we do to bring people into the fold? And I came to believe, after lots and lots of looking at lots of models, that the most important thing is the human connection, exactly what Chris had set up in this discussion before. Because if you think about it, we all have experienced that. We've all heard somebody's story, or we've had our own story, and people get very interested when they see the eyes, they see the expression, they hear the reality of what's going on with you or with that person. So that got me thinking a lot. And I had just moved to Sacramento from Arizona about 6 months ago. So I'm still building my organization here. But I went to one of the first rallies, the Hands Off rally. And I decided that I wanted to do an experiment. And, you know, I'm not like a fancy videographer or anything. I'm just somebody who loves photographing. I love taking videos. I've done interviews just ad hoc here and there at different rallies throughout my career. But this time I just really wanted to try and see if I could find out why people were there and what was going on with them. And so that's what I did. I brought another video person with me, and I also had someone working the table, and we actually got about 70 videos in the course of an hour and a half, 2 hours at Hands Off. And the way we did that is we handed little cards out, and we said, you know, this is these are the 3 bullets or 4 bullets to think about. Think about it. You have a few minutes before, you know, you're in line, and so that's how it got started. And then part of my work was also, in my background as a user experience designer, eliciting good information from people was always really important. And so how do you elicit expression? How do you elicit people to tell their story in a way that will capture interest? And that is what I am really interested in, focusing on, leading a team that helps people learn how to ask the questions to get the great responses that are going to move mountains, that are going to move people, and they'll see, I relate to that. And maybe they'll tell their own story, and then maybe they will join the movement. You know, that's my ultimate goal. So anyway, so we did that, and I'm going to share my screen, and I wanted to show you some of the videos that we got. A lot of these videos, and I will say this, were a lot of them were done with 2 and 3 takes, because a lot of times people aren't comfortable at first, or they have questions, or they start something and they kind of go down a track and it's like way off the main point, because we all do that. We digress at times, right? So a lot of these were done after a couple takes. Some people took none because it was a natural to them. It's not natural to everyone, but they have good stories. So I'm going to share, and I'm going to just do a couple of them so that you will be able to see, oh God, you'll see my huge desktop stuff, a few examples. So ultimately we want stories of people that are directly affected. A lot of them at Hands Off was before the big, beautiful bill. People were just there. Why were they there and what they had to share? But we got some really interesting stuff. So I'm going to play a couple of them, and I'll talk through and maybe pause in a couple of them to show you what I mean. This woman was from a country that borders Russia, which was very interesting.
Hi,
Oh, wait a second. I think I need to add did you guys hear that? You probably didn't. I'm going to start over because I need to share with the audio correct. So let me do that. Share sound. Oh, there's the videos. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do it again. So tell me if you can be able to hear this.
Hi, my name is Victoria, and
You guys able to hear it?
Thumbs up, yeah. Yes.
Yes. Okay, good.
I'm from a country that is bordering Russia, and my country lost its independence and regained its independence and democracy. And I saw what happened in our neighboring Russia in 2000, how it lost it independence and democracy. And I'm seeing what happened in the US right now, and it's chilling because I see similarities. In fact, the last couple of cases, like bullying lawyers and kidnapping a person with somebody with no marks and with mask on their face, it didn't happen in Russia in 2000. It happened way later.
So that's an example of something that is very different, but that was one of the examples. I'm going to play a couple that are a little bit more related to some of these issues. This is a woman who talks about rape and abortion.
I'm Kelly, and I'm really concerned about banning abortions, especially when it comes to underage girls. I was someone who experienced rape when I was a child, and I did get contraceptives from Planned Parenthood. So I'm really grateful for Planned Parenthood having helped me not get pregnant due to a rape that was happening on a constant basis. And I ended up being institutionalized by my abusive father, and I would have been forced to have a child when I was really young, and realizing that there are so many other people that I think we really don't hear this kind of thing. Like, there are young girls forced to have children of rape, and that really concerns me.
So that was another example. I'll just show you a couple others. A lot of people are afraid to put their face out there and or say their names. And you can assure people that the tone of voice is as important as anything. So this person, we blurred her face out. This is not necessarily the best way, but this is the way we edited it.
If we tell everybody to quit or they'll be fired, then there's nobody there to do their job. What they want to do is privatize everything because they want proof the government's inefficient, but they're making the government inefficient. They're making it not work by making it impossible for federal employees to do their job effectively. You know, they all have 2 to 3, 4 times the workload that they should.
What is your friend spending time on?
Research of whether any of the recipients are deceased. A number of things that is not part of their normal job. And then what do you come up with after a whole week and back and forth in meetings and reports and I mean over and over and over is zero. There's none. So you just wasted a whole week. Now you got paid to do that, but it all comes from the administration. You know, he appoints the secretary of this, the secretary of that, and then they have undersecretaries and it just gets passed down.
Hi, I'm Elise.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention that she had a lot of expression in her voice, which makes a big difference. I'm just going to play one more and describe something here to you. I can find him here. There he is. A lot of the folks who came were in education, were worried about the disabled. And that was this person here. It took me 4 takes to get this with Dell. But when we did, it was very good. It took him a while to get comfortable. So I'm going to play this one and then we can chat.
Hi, my name is Dell, and as a parent and a special education teacher, I'm deeply concerned about the privatization and the gutting of our institutions that are devoted to that population. Children in need.
It's okay.
I do not see I do not see a whit of reason to trust these people with that very deep responsibility of providing for the vulnerable children in our population.
I'm Samantha. I'm here
Right,
working.
I keep clicking on this thing. Anyway, that was interesting because, yeah, like I said, it took 3 or 4 or 5 times. But if I had to take the very long, drawn-out video that we had, I would be spending hours editing. I did that already with a few of these, and that's another reason that you want to learn how to get the best from people right away, because you can cut down on editing time. And by the way, I just use a very simple editing tool called CapCut. So anyway, we can talk more about that later, but I just want to like end this session with, again, saying how great it is you're here. And also I can share with you the link to this. I'll put that in the chat. So you can go look at all these. There's about 20 in here. And remember, most of these are people that have been indirectly or not affected yet, because it was pre-Big Beautiful Bill and a lot of stuff. I got a few more at the other rallies, but frankly, what I found at the rallies as it went on was that more people wanted to be marching and excited with the group and weren't really exploring tables as much. That was my experience. But anyway, I'll give you that link. And then when we get ready to do the videos, we're going to put some information in here to give you some tips in the chat so that you can be ready to give your story in a way that's succinct, emotional, and gets it within 30 seconds to 45 seconds most. The idea is to state what it is you want, or state what it is that's happened to you, then elaborate. And we'll put that information in the chat for you. And I'm going to stop sharing now. So if anybody, if we want to do questions later, I don't know what you wanted to do next, but I'm all here for whatever.
Okay, so yeah, Chris, you can if you can go ahead and answer a couple questions. What we're just so everybody knows, we have a hard stop at 8:30, or well, thereabouts. You know how that sometimes goes with us, but the Zoom call is scheduled till 8:30. So what we're going to be doing in between now and then is hopefully gathering at least a couple of stories. And Chris is facilitating that, but if you have time to fit in a couple questions before that, that's fine. And then the important part is I'm going to need about 5 minutes at the very end, and that's when we're going to show everybody where we are with the volunteers. We're going to give the volunteer form. We're going to give the sharing our story form. So I just want to make sure we have time for anybody who to do that. The other thing I'm going to say before I transition it back to Chris is just because I'm worried about if anybody has any difficulties with the form, sorry about my pups, is if you are interested in helping in any way. I already saw some people that said, hey, I would love to do amplifying, or I think I can help with tech. Go ahead and put that in the chat, and then we'll figure out how to reach out to you. Just because I know at the very end is when we're going to be giving you that form. So you're going to need to be able to grab it and towards the end of the call to fill it out and hopefully save it. But all right. So Chris, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I'm just going to kind of let you manage the time that you want in terms of the questions, because I'm assuming the questions were directed towards Chris. Is that correct? Are there questions in the chat that, or not?
I can go over the chat stuff that's in chat right now. That might be a useful use of the time.
Okay, go ahead.
So if you scroll up to where Merle started at 5:29, this is the beginning of a long bunch of information, but I'll just quickly go through it. So obviously we know what kind of stories we're looking for affected by the administration. We also ask that the videos be nonpartisan, and by that means we're not trying to bash Trump or Republicans or any of that stuff. The point is to avoid the division and have someone to actually listen to your heart. It's just much more useful that way. And also then, if you move down a little bit further with Merle here at 5:33, tips for preparing a story. The most important thing to remember about this is to trust your own feelings. Personal expression is key. Don't hold back on that. Just be yourself. Pretend we're best friends when we're talking. And sometimes you have to go through a couple of practice sessions, like I was saying. One thing I wanted to mention too, we've talked about the Truth Brigade and propaganda. A side benefit of these videos that I think I mentioned already is that people are drawn to stories as opposed to rhetoric and memes. And they're more likely to hear the truth or believe the truth from someone's lips and expression and feelings than they are from some rhetoric about a policy. Are you guys not able to read the, I can post if you can't read these things I'm talking about. Are you able to see things? Yes, no? Hands up. Okay, I'll just keep going. If you've got questions, if you guys can field that, I'll be happy to answer as we go. So when you're doing this, there's kind of 4 stages of thinking about this in advance. The first is you simply state your first name, and it doesn't have to be your real name. Okay, and then you make a definitive statement. I've got examples underneath this, but for example, my name is Mandy. I was detained by ICE and I'm a US citizen. You want to be succinct in the beginning about what the issue is. That doesn't mean you hold back on your emotion. It just means be as clear as you can. Think about the words you're going to use. That's your first point of contact with the human brain, right? And then the third part is elaborate with 1 or 2 additional points that paint a picture. This is like always the case. You want to paint that picture with emotion, with metaphor, whatever works for you. It's just being yourself about how you would just talk to your friend about it. And for example, you're elaborating from the woman that was detained by ICE. They tied my hands. I was on the ground. Things happened, etc. Give a little bit more about the full story. And that's where you can really immerse yourself and allow your expression to unfold around those points. And then the last part is very simple. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share the story, or just thank you. It's a good way to close. It's a good way to know that's the end of it and to edit, because then it will go back and recycle like in TikTok and that sort of stuff, and you know where the end is. So those are examples. Another one example is, my name is Tom and my insurance premiums have skyrocketed. Elaborate. I contracted cancer and I became bankrupt. I was unable to care for my family. You know, on and on, a little bit more elaboration, embellishing that initial definitive statement. So it's really not rocket science. These are really just basics about organizing your mind about how you're going to talk about it. So when the people at the rallies had like maybe 5-10 minutes, most of them, you know, knew what they were going to talk about. They knew what exact details they wanted to bring to it. And they were ready for the most part, if they weren't too nervous. And that's where you had to kind of coach them. So anyway, that's pretty much it. And then I do want to say that the videos are intended for social media, basically, and sharing with your reps if they ask, things like that. The thing is, the internet is the only source of news for many people. And this is also what got me thinking early on about this. You go to TikTok, people are like running through stuff. You go to Reels, you go to Instagram. I mean, it's like they're just on there and they're so misinformed, okay? And what I started seeing was more people telling stories and more people doing videos. And it was really, really helpful to me. I learned a lot by that. But we also have to catch interest quickly. And so catching interest means early on, state that definitive statement, and then start talking about all of the stuff that happened around it with emotion. And it's most successful when you can be authentic with your feelings. So that's basically it.
Before we go on, Chris,
yeah.
there's one hand up. Constance has her hand up. Go ahead, Constance.
Okay. Chris, thank you for these wonderful videos. I just wondered, do you also do a text version of whomever you've filmed, and then use that written version for anything, or do you use written accounts at all, whether they're filmed previously or not?
I have not done that, but what I do have is the ability to give you the script of what was said, because you run the video through an editor like CapCut, and you can automatically generate all the captions. So if you wanted to write a more elaborate story around it, you could take the guts of that and then, you know, add to it, use it as an example, perhaps in a longer piece or in a letter to the editor where explaining what's going on. And then here's the story of this person. So I can definitely like find those scripts for you, or you can just go and look at them and you will see you will be able to get them yourself. I'm pretty sure you can do that.
Would whatever you give me have the contact information of the person you interviewed for perhaps follow-up information or something, or
I do have some of
permissions,
sorry.
or permissions from that person?
Yeah. Hey, can I jump in here? So as we're gathering our stories, whether they end up going the video route or the written route, or even both, we actually have a permission slip, you know, which addresses where their stuff can be shared and how it can be shared. So that will all be the administrative part of it. You know, in other words, we're going to have an intake form, right? That people are going to say, hey, I have a story to share, or I'm willing to share a story. And then it might go just one direction, it might go two, but one way or the other, all of the permissions and, you know, the follow-up stuff will all be contained within the form. But those are some of those forms that we have to update a little bit because of some of the changes that we've made in the process.
Okay.
I would like to just add too that when I was at Hands Off and did this, I told them right off the bat that these were going to be in social media, and that was the point of it. And also when you take videos or anything like that, a public place to public domain. So it's a very good courtesy to do what is being suggested with the permissions. I found that some people got tied up in that, and then they could really do the spontaneous video. But a spontaneous video is different than planning it. So I recognize that. But if you do something in a public space, it is public and you can't be sued for that or anything like that. But I wouldn't do that out of courtesy.
Right.
But I always told people what the point of it was and why that's important. So if somebody doesn't want their face to be shown, for instance, you don't have to do that. That's usually what people are concerned about. But if you don't get it out there, it's really kind of loses the point of it. It's different for written. I'm just really speaking from the video stuff.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So are we ready to try some of this, or?
Yeah.
We did have one more question.
Oh, okay.
Ellen.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you said just now about public domain, I was out getting signatures and this guy was willing to take pictures to try to build a website but he said, I'm not going to put other people in it, thinking that it would not be legal. But you're saying that, and I was like, you know, you see these kind of pictures all the time, but you're saying that that's public domain. So
well, I can't speak for every little vale in every county and all that, but as far as I know in California, it's true that, you know, that is not, if it's in the public domain and a person's in public and you're recording or taking photos, that's not, that's open public. If you're in a private club or in someone's home, I'm sure that's very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It seemed like, you know, people were telling me so many stories about, you know, what they are concerned about in terms of issues. And, you know, so it seemed like people would be, they were less personal stories, but more like, you know, ICE is over there picking people up, you know, that was the number one issue. So, you know, that seems like an opportunity to, you know, to get those kind of testimonials and right.
Yeah.
So I just want to say there's a woman named Catherine who had a question in the chat, I think, about leaving out the obvious but hard to make personal and not say who is making it hard or specifics.
That's me. Can you hear me?
So Catherine, did you want to clarify your question?
Yeah, well, I mean, public speaking hasn't always been easy for me. I've got a couple different things going on in my head about this. One of them is if we're speaking to the choir, so to speak, you know, when to go further. You know, when is it time to take it out to wherever that, but yeah, to speak effectively, you know, and use the least amount of words. But when people are telling their stories, personal stories, that's a little bit different than just public speaking. You can't, you know, you can't cut them off when they're in an emotional, you know, whatever. And I'm just, you know, putting that stuff out there about permissions, which is been answered. And just wondering again, if this is kept, and I'm kind of wondering about the nonpartisan thing. I don't see how I can't be. I'm not a partisan. I am partisan. Anyway, that's for another time.
So let me respond to that. You know, it's really the partisanship part is just, we don't want to be bashing anybody or saying, I mean, it's okay to say something like, you know, the administration has created blah, 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 and it's hurting me, you know, or something. But you start getting into bashing the whole Trump thing, and it just,
it's so,
it doesn't work.
Yeah, I get
people
that.
turn off. People turn
But
off.
I mean, if somebody is saying, like, you know, I'll just use my own situation of it gets really personal. I have a special needs grandson. There's so many things happening that could happen with him, and the fear behind it. And it's just trying to go day by day, because if we think too much, you know, of what ifs, it makes us crazy. Excuse me. And then if we, you know, think about, you know, my daughter passed away in 23, and so did his father. So both parents passed away in 2023. And then my grandsons are his older brothers are taking care of him now. And putting out personal stuff, also just opening up to whoever, if it's, you know, put out in a group, that's one thing. You know, I think about the privacy issues, and yet I want to be heard. You know, I just got like, I wanted people to know, and it's fear. It's fear. And I believe Bill or someone in a past group a couple weeks ago, because I'd been so busy with stuff in the city with relatives, I haven't been on here. Said some man on here said something about, you know, being fearful, and whoever it was answered, well, then that's giving in. And I believe that totally. That if I'm going to be hurt, which we all are, I mean, many people are being hurt, and my family is being hurt. I am not as much at this time, but it could happen. Just little things so far with me. If I'm going to be hurt, I'm going to fight. You know, like if I'm hurt anyway, and my grandson's possibility of him being, you know, taken off of Medicaid, or all the things that could happen. If I need to be stepping it up. And storytelling is great. I'm like I said, is it more speaking to the choir? Like what some person said, I think it was Warren Buffett, who says a lot. What next? You know, how can it be put out to the people who need to hear it?
I'm glad you brought that up, and I would like to address that, because the point is to get people who are not necessarily in the choir, but people who can speak and talk about what, you know, how they're feeling and what's happening. As far as getting it out there, that's the whole point of doing this, and doing it in short segments and getting it on social media. A lot of people in the margins who vote, and this is from Rachel Bidikofer, it's like they don't get their news anywhere else but on these, you know, platforms. So this is a way to get the humanity, the humanism out there on social media and make change. I agree with you that we don't want to just go with the choir. And a lot of these videos I did, like I was saying earlier, are indirect effect. We're having a fear. You know, and it's totally valid. Those feelings are still valid. Those are still valid impacts. But we want to find stories. There's two camps. There's that camp, and then there's the stories where people were directly affected. And that's where I really want to go with this more. But finding those for me has been difficult. I just got here, like I said, starting to organize. I don't know a lot of the communities. It's about networking and going into the communities and seeing, getting people to trust you. There's a lot that goes to that. But you guys already have some people, and I don't want to delay that any longer. You know, if there's anything else anybody else has to ask, or I don't know if I'm answering everything, but
I was gonna say, hey, if I could, just because we still have to get, we still have to show where we're at with the project, but I don't want to lose the opportunity to gather some stories tonight, guys. So let's go ahead and transition to Chris starting that portion of it. So if anybody has a story that they would like to share, and I'm just gonna, you know, I'm just gonna make a recommendation. Just don't get too hung up on the guidance. You know, I know that was, you know, I know there were some, you know, some prompts to help you do it. Just kind of do what you've done on some of the other calls. I mean, you've had a chance to look at some of the suggestions that Chris made, but I don't want you to get overly nervous or worried about that. Okay. I just want you to kind of, you guys are a talkative group. We've done this a number of different times where you've shared stories. So if anybody has anything, if wants to be the first volunteer, go ahead and raise your hand. And I see Stephanie.
Why not? I will be happy to share my story. I have a story I think it's worth sharing.
Can we get you on the video? Like the
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry. I'll pin myself up.
And then Chris, I'm transitioning it back to you. So you got this, right? For
okay.
To do your, okay. All right. Very good.
There we go. Hi.
Hi. And what was your name again?
My name is Stephanie.
Great.
Although I'm
Nice
not
to
sure
meet
I
you.
want to use it. After I tell my story, you'll understand why. I'm being
just
serious.
mimicking what I would do. So
Go ahead.
What is the gist of your story? Can you just tell me real quick?
Yeah, I actually have an immigration concern that no one would ever know about.
Oh,
I was born in the Panama Canal Zone, and I was adopted. So there are all sorts of things that may or may not be necessary in order for me to really have legal immigration status. Didn't really worry about it until now. Actually, I started in 2015, and I have lived in fear.
Okay, let's start over and do the video. And I just wanted to get a feel for what you were going to talk about. And you've actually mentioned this before, so that's nice to know. Just think of me as your friend, and we're just talking. So I'd like to know, just tell me the gist of what you are going to talk about, and then you can go into more about your fears and some of the, elaborate a little bit, okay?
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Give me your first name and a definitive statement about what your concern is, and we'll go from there.
My name is Stephanie, and I have a concern about my immigration status.
What about that?
My concern is that I am not certain that my parents did everything necessary to make my Panamanian Canal Zone adoption legal when they brought me into the States in 1961. People have actually been deported. There was a Korean fella who was in my circumstance who was deported during the first Trump administration. And it got real scary for people who were adopted then. And it's even scarier now, because if I got picked up, I have all the real IDs, I have all the paperwork, but you know what? Nobody's following the rules.
How does that make you feel?
I'm terrified, but I don't look it because I'm also white. So from a general perspective, I think I am at less risk. But you know, they start putting the databases together from Doge and figuring out who's where. I could get a knock on my door. Terrifies me.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for listening.
Well, it's a tough one, and there's lots of people facing that right now. So I empathize with you, and I hope others will relate as well and come forth with their own stories like that so that we can get more involved. So anybody else want to give it a go?
Yeah, I do. When you think the government shutdown gonna end?
Why it has been for the last 10 months.
I'm sorry, I'm hearing a background.
Yeah, if anybody has a story that they would like to share, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll and if you're a first timer here, you raise your digital hand using the react button. It's that little heart-shaped button at the bottom of your hopefully computer screen, but I think even if you're on a phone, you still see a heart-shaped button. So if you open that up, and then you click on the react, and then there'll be a raise hand feature. So if anybody else has a story to share or wants to give it a go.
Come on, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Well, I'll share. It's kind of unusual, but yes.
Can we get your video up? Sorry.
Oh God, my hair is all fuzzy.
Is this me?
There we go. So let me say hello. It's Ellen, right?
Yes.
Give us a general statement, your first name and a general statement about what your concern is or your story's about, and then we'll go from there.
Yes. Yes. My name is Ellen, and my concern is that, I'm running for Congress, but in Chicago, where two other people who are running have been indicted for protesting at the Broadview Plaza. And I don't know what to say or do about how we're going to deal with this. So that's the thing is, what can we do? I guess that's.
So did you say you are running for office?
Yes, I am. But
and you're concerned about the fact that people who are protesting are getting indicted, which could be you, right? Protesting.
Right. And even two other people who are running for office for Congress were protesting. And the one who is really outspoken about Palestine, was indicted, by the National Guard, accused her of hurting them. And, so it's beyond, I think, well, here I am, a white person, stick my white face in there and say something. But it's weird because we don't really know the law and what we can do. It is more like a regime and a militarized police state. So
how are you feeling about that? I mean, what comes up for you when you think about these things?
Well, I hadn't really thought about it till now. I was saying I'm just going to get in there and say something, but when you kind of frame it in terms of my story, that's kind of right. I wanted to ask more questions to Stephanie. I'm like, I was also a counselor, certified drug and alcohol counselor. I mean, how can you get your papers, right? People are telling me they're walking the kids to school, and I mean, it's a big issue. And also, I'm on this truth group with the Florida guy, and their views of immigration are the Republicans are so that they're illegal, and they shouldn't be here, and they should learn to speak English. And so I'm like, what are you saying? And they're like, they called, they said, well, why did you upset him? You know, confronting this guy about, I think we should have open borders. I mean, this is
I
crazy.
agree with that. I agree with that. I
So
agree.
I think what would be useful is to just start again, and we'll do this really quick, and we'll just say this is going to be 30 seconds. Tell us the most important thing that's happening to you or that you're concerned about and how you're really feeling about that. And I'll just let you take it. So start over and let's just try it.
Yes. Hi, I'm Ellen Corley, and, I'm running for Congress, but the biggest issue here is the immigration and ICE and it makes me angry. I want to say something and, don't really know what to do.
What do you mean say something about to whom?
Well, I'm to the other Republican people that are strangely want closed borders. It doesn't make any sense to me. So we need legislation. Immigration has never made much sense, but now when you see that they're just picking up people and stripping them and sticking them on top of each other, and in these detention centers here, it's like and they're not stopping, and the politicians aren't saying anything either. They're just like, well, we don't, we're standing up for it, but against Trump, but they're not saying anything, and that's why I'm running.
So I hear your frustration. Yeah. Well, thank you. This is an example of a case where I would probably, there's kind of 2 or 3 storylines in here. So when we had more time, I would probably keep it more into one specific thing and then tell me how that's making you feel. And then the next maybe point or two that supports that. And part of this is finding the right words. And I know it's hard to do in the spur of the moment. But sometimes it takes them a little time to just figure out the words you want to say and then don't worry about it. You know the words you're going to say and just feel it. And so that's something we would work on together. So, all right. Well, thank you. I think someone else, maybe there was someone else that was interested.
We probably have time for one more. I looks like Catherine, I can't tell if Catherine Kusick, are you trying to raise your hand? It looks like you're raising your hand on video. Can we unmute?
There's a woman named Kara too that I noticed here.
Oh, okay. I don't see her, but let me, hey, Kathy Kusick, are you able to unmute yourself? Yeah, there should be a button on your screen that you have to press that that just prompts you to unmute, because are you not seeing that?
Why don't we jump to oh, she's ready?
Yeah, yes. But you know what? I'm sending somebody from Mexico. And I don't know.
So that's somebody else that, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but how about we go on to Kara? Kara, okay. Are you able to unmute yourself?
I'm unmuted.
Okay, very good.
Hi, Kara.
I live in a building. I suspect all these guys in here are Republican. I hear some really weird stuff that people think. This one woman told me she thought that somebody paid all 7 million people in the King's March. Yeah. But she doesn't like Trump, but she does like the way he's running the country. I mean, that is whacked, you know? How do you change somebody like that? You know?
Well, yeah, you're not going to change people by even trying to discuss that stuff. But what we really want is to hear how you are feeling and how you're being affected. And that way other people may relate. So if you can tell
emotionally,
yeah, so let's just start
really being affected.
Okay, let's just start with the beginning and just say your name and say why you're concerned.
I'm concerned that people believe this stuff, and that you know, I don't have my food stamps anymore. You know, it's really it's a nightmare. You know, they're using food as a weapon, like, you know, Israel is with Gaza. I can't believe it. I can't believe it's going on.
Tell me what's happening with your food stamps. You are now not getting them, and you were?
No, we're not going to get them. Trump doesn't want us to have them.
But I mean, has that happened to you yet, or is it already happened to you or not?
It's going to happen to me in 3 days.
Okay.
You know? And food is so high, you know, the high priced. There's, I don't know, man, you know? There's no way I'm going to be able to go to the grocery store, that's for sure. And they said the food banks are going to start running out. You have to stand in these long lines, you know? I'm just really upset about it.
I understand. Thank you for your courage to say those things and to let us know where you're at. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Can
I speak another one?
now? Oh, it looks like we have Kathy. Kathy, we can hear you now. And then Dana, we see that your hand is up right after Kathy's.
I wish to speak a little bit about being a retired educator and how concerned I've been over the last many years about censorship, not just in education, but also in journalism. And while I'm retired now and never ever had any challenges about what I could teach, it's deeply affecting me with my own grandchildren in schools, but across the board for everyone to have the threat of journalists being censored and teachers being censored with regard to what they can say in terms of teaching history, which is what I used to do, and providing all sorts of books for kids. I think it's absolutely criminal that no one has stood up to the regime and told them they cannot be censoring libraries or the way people teach.
Well, that's great information. And we do have some historical reference to that, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Banning books, burning books.
Yes.
So if we were going to work together.
We haven't been there before, but we've seen it before, yes.
Mm-hmm. What I would do is I would love to have another talk with you where we can focus on like one or two things at a time and really focus on those things and talk about maybe you have background and know people that this has happened to in other countries, or maybe you are been reading about the history and can speak to that. But I think for the sake of time right now, it's better we would do that another time. And we've got one more, and I appreciate what you had to say, though. It's all true. It's all really bad. But we have now Dana, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm Dana. Just none of this is affecting me directly yet, but things are kind of spiraling. Earlier this year, a lot of the grants and funding for charities were cut, and a number of the places that distribute food were obviously having more difficulty. Now with the food stamps and the shutdown, things are kind of building. As someone mentioned, a neighbor of hers had missed their second paycheck as a government employee, and a lot of the food banks there are still food distributions, but they're drastically cutting back, just as snaps. I mean, everything's kind of building right now to a head. The positive thing is that there are other institutions where you've got local people who've been doing urban gardening, where people are stepping up and saying, we'll pay you directly and use that instead. But a lot of what had been the systems that we developed that had worked so long, they seem to be crumbling. Hopefully, things will change, but just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. If I had the time, I would have you do something again. It was good information. It was a lot of information. And I there's some kind of echoing going on.
Someone may have an open mic.
Probably me. I'm not sure how to shut it.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
I would just say that we have a lot of indirect, a lot of us are afraid, a lot of us are in the choir, so to speak, and have not been as directly affected. But we have friends that are, or we are seeing it in our communities. And bringing it forward that way is another way to engender some emotion and expression. Like, I have a neighbor who is married to a Brazilian woman who came here specifically through being married. And he's been going after them. And so our community is up in arms about how we're going to deal with this. And one woman has suggested that she will just take her in behind her house and she gets to go in and nobody can come into her house. I mean, there's a lot of like little sub stories that you can begin to assemble in your mind if you want to speak about some issue by bringing in a relative or bringing in a friend or somebody in your community and talking directly about what's happening with them and the fear that they're feeling, and the empathy that you're feeling. This is hurting my heart. I mean, things like that. I mean, it's just all about thinking about your audience. You want them to empathize with you. And the way to do that is by opening your heart, opening your feelings and saying how it really is for you. So that's about all I can say to that at this moment. But I really try to engender that in people when we do these. So anyway, thank you. Very good input. Should we do another one? Do we have time?
Let's go ahead and try one more, and then we're going to transition to just we'll flip back to the slides and show kind of the way ahead and where we are with all the volunteers. And I'll have Laura put in the sign up sheet to either say that you have a story to share or that you'd like to volunteer to be one of the roles on our team. So one more, Chris.
So Stephanie, can you put the next person on the screen? I said view and I thought that, who was the person?
Elena.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Good. Good. Hi.
How are you?
Good. Tell me your name and what you want to share.
So my name is Elena, and part of how I combat depression is I volunteer, I work, I try to make change. So I volunteer for like 10 organizations at this point. And one of the things that I do is I'm on a accessibility advisory board for Trans Upfront Illinois. And in this role, we've been fighting against all of the defunding of healthcare for trans youth. And I don't personally have a trans child, but the emails that we receive from the parents, the hundreds and hundreds of emails we've received from parents desperate, just absolutely desperate for care for their children, it's heartbreaking because the emails we receive are like, my child deserves life. My child likes to read. My child plays baseball. My child is just like every other child, and that they can't be seen that way, that they can't be valued enough to give them this life-saving care is awful. I mean, we just cry and cry when we read these emails. And the fact that people are dehumanizing other people in order to push policy is brutal and far-reaching, and it's just terribly upsetting. And so that's part of why I do all of the things that I do. So yeah, I just wanted to, like this year alone, we've lost over 27 young people just because of their despondence over not being able to receive health care. They've committed suicide.
So I'm going
And-
to stop you there because that's a very, very high level emotional impact fact. If we were going to do this again, I might ask you to give me the most important thing that has bothered you in this job, and start over and say, I work for such and such. And rather than try to describe too much about it, I would just say, I get these emails from parents of trans people that are just breaking my heart. For example, this and this, and then did you know that 27 people, so it's that. So I'm not trying to script it out for you.
No,
I'm just
I understand.
trying to condense it so that it's like, how?
No, I would write it out if I was going to tell it for camera. So
Well, we could find a way to do that if you'd like to do that.
yeah, absolutely. And
That's a really important story. I mean, the fact is, it's kind of reminds me of the Latino guy who works at the DMV, and he runs into the people all the time that are afraid to even come in and get their driver's license.
Yeah.
It's not him necessarily, but it's all his brothers and sisters. And they're coming in and telling him how scared they are. They won't even go in. So that's just as valid, and so it's the same kind of situation. And then maybe what you could do also is at some point, maybe there'd be a brave trans child or a parent that could come forward and tell a story. You might be a great connection to something like that.
Actually, yeah, Bob Skrasinski, who is on the front page of the Chicago Tribune, is a board member also of the organization. And he was on the page talking about his child and the difficulty they've had receiving healthcare. And I mean, he's one of those guys too that goes up and he joins me to speak at board meetings for school boards and all kinds of things. He's very outspoken. He's a real Papa Bear. So I'm sure
that's
that he
exactly
would be very interested in supporting this cause.
That'd be great. I would love to talk to him. And again, if there's a child that would become forth too, that helps. Anything that
The main
strikes
problem, the main problem there though is people are doxxed and targeted constantly. He's already been doxxed, so he's not as afraid. But in the trans community, it is incredibly dangerous right now. People are afraid to leave their homes. They're afraid to walk on the street. They don't want to go out and get their groceries.
So
Yeah,
one thing you might consider telling someone that don't have to show their face, they don't have to give their name, but just their voice coming through to another kid who's hearing that, going, I relate to that. It's just a way to help get more empathy and get the cause out there. So anyway, thank you. That is very interesting, and we should stay in touch.
And if there are other topics that you're interested in getting stories on, like I said, I volunteer for like 10 organizations on different topics and disability justice and women's justice and LGBTQ justice. So if there are stories you're looking for, I'm happy to find folks to tell stories, because
so that's great, because that's one of the tasks that we need.
That's a great segue, Elena. Am I saying your name right? Is it
yeah,
Elena
you are
or
actually.
Alana?
It's kind of a miracle. My mom was very creative, so.
Okay. No, yeah, because actually one of the roles that we're looking for are story gatherers. So it sounds like you would story collectors. You would be great.
I know a lot of
at
people
doing that, and certainly I think it would be worthwhile for you to sign up also as a story, that specific story that you were telling, and having Chris work with you on that. So what I'm going to do is transition, because we're at time right now, a little over time. And I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to see the sign up sheet. So there's a sign up form that if you have a story you would like to share, there is a form that Laura has just dropped into the chat But in addition to that, if you would like to volunteer to be in one of the roles that we've mentioned, and guys, some of these roles like amplifying, like the AMP team, just as one example, I mean, this is just, sharing content that's already been created by somebody, and it could even be on your personal social media, or we can give you designated places to post it every month as we create it. So, basically,
that again, that slide.
Yeah. So, actually, let me just see what it looks like on the very next one. So way ahead, we want to lock in the team leads. And once we lock up the team leads, then we'll be able to set up some of the follow-on team meetings that will work out some of the details, like on some of the questions that were asked. Also in the chat, just informational, is I put some links to op-ed writing workshops, because we had a lot of people volunteer to be writers on the team, but we didn't have that op-ed writing workshop yet, which I am going to schedule for the people who would like to do that. But until then, I have some online versions. Eventually, we will also have a video content creation editing workshop. Hopefully, Chris will be helping us with that. And then, Stephanie, can you go to the very next slide? Because this one lays out who the actual team leads are, like where we stand right now. So basically, the writer editor team lead is Constance. Storytelling collection team lead is Constance. But I also heard Elena thinks that she could probably help with that team. So hopefully we can get you on that one. And then video content creation is Chris, who you spent the evening with tonight. She will be the one that will be not only training some of us, but also lead on just everything we're doing with the video portion of it. And then we have another team member, Sabrina, who some of you have met. We introduced her on the last call. And if you went on to the tech call today with Stephanie and Bill and all that, I know that she did the second half, I believe, of the podcast training that she was doing. I just want to clarify, podcasts for us will probably come later in the project after we really get some of our infrastructure in place, because what we did learn through Sabrina is podcasting takes some time, effort, and planning for you to really get a podcast off the ground. And then amplification team, these are the folks that share stuff, whether it's on a website or whether it's sending it to some of the congressional offices that Bill has some of his reps asking for stories. So that would be the job of that person. We're still looking for a tech team lead. I don't know, hint, Stephanie. I don't know, but I know she has a pretty full plate, but she might be one that can help us with that. And then just that follow-up scheduler person, okay, is another one that's more administrative. That's when the forms come in, just connecting people together and following up, saying, we got your form, we see that you have a story to share, and we're going to connect you to the people that can do that. The very next slide shows, now this was gathered from people who over the course of weeks have volunteered to be part of a team. So we have the writer editor team, these are people just who initially volunteered. So, some of you may have changed your mind, but this is who. And then for the people that are doing the amplification, there we go. Is Cheryl, Gina. So some of you may be on the call today. I wanted to put this out here because it's been a while since we've showed everybody, who signed up for what. You may have changed your mind on some of these. And I know some of these folks volunteered specifically to share stories as compared to writing and editing. So we might have some of that combined a little bit. And, but for right now, we have both the forms in the chat. I'm going to ask that you try and grab them, but if it's too complicated, at least put a note. If you are interested in volunteering as part of one of these teams or just want to get involved, put a note saying which one in the chat. And we will follow up with you, because I know it's kind of tough sometimes with just the technology and the forms, and sometimes the links don't work. The other thing that is in the chat is there is a campaign going on where they are a group is asking for people to share their stories about Medicaid. The name of the group is called Economic Security Justice Healthcare Heist. And Laura put a couple of links in the chat related to that. Although at least on her computer, one of the links, which is the link that you use to actually input your story for that campaign, is not working. It's working on mine. I don't know if it's not working in general, but we thought we would still give it a shot and put it in the chat, and then you can let us know if it works or not. And that's just an ask, that if you are interested in sharing a story and helping them out while we get our project off the ground, that they're collecting stories as we speak. Okay. And we can go ahead and take that slide down. And I am going to wrap up. The last thing, and this is also in the chat, is just we have a couple of those resources that I've already mentioned, those letters to the editors. And then MAD Media Writers Workshop also does a letter to the editor. So we have links in the chat if you're interested in getting kind of ahead of it before we actually schedule the live person to do the letter to the editor workshop. And so with that, I want to end this evening. It's been so great. And I just think we have so much opportunity here to really amplify some of, and we heard it even on this call tonight, some of the pain, some of the harm, some of the worries and the anxiety that right now that people are suffering through, whether it's their SNAP assistance, whether they're concerned about their status just even as legal citizens. Stephanie, I had not heard your story before, and I have to say that's powerful. Yeah, can anybody even imagine, one day waking up and just saying, are they coming after me next? And so thank you everybody for being here. And we will continue this effort. This was session number 6. And I'm hoping we get more volunteers. And I actually hope we have some people that sign up to be some of the team leads. Elena, did you have one more question before we end the session?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about as far as the creation of like the spreadsheet database, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know if you saw. I just want to make sure you know that I'm interested
able to do that kind of stuff,
because I do that sort of.
Yeah. So when you fill out that
form, I don't have a lot of time,
form,
but I have enough time to do that.
Yeah, that's something we're going to have the tech team help with. So it sounds like you might be good for the story collections, as well as, well, 3 things really. You have a story to share, and that's actually a separate form that we have because we ask for permissions and things like that. And then also volunteer to be part of the tech team, which is not on the specific form, but when we update it, it will be. So maybe just put like a, kind of a note in there that you're interested in the tech team, or put it in the chat and we'll capture it one way or the other.
Great. Could I just interject one quick thing before we all end? I would really appreciate it if you guys would go to the YouTube channel that I showed you. I should have mentioned this before, and subscribe. You don't have to get the notifications, but if I get up to 100 subscribers, which I'm just starting, then I'll get in the algorithm better. And somebody asked, how do we make these wider? You guys can take these videos and share them on your personal pages. You can do whatever you want with them, but also if you subscribe to the channel, it helps it grow. So I'm putting the link in the chat for you. So thank you for doing that.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks everybody and have a good night. We'll see you at the next session.
Thank you.
Come on.